Hey everybody, hope you all had a great Christmas and that it was fun and enjoyed the family and friends. What I want to do, just have a chat on today, is the status of the South African democracy. The reason why I've been thinking about this a lot lately is I recently bought a book by Andrew Feinstein called After the Party. Andrew Feinstein was a guy who was quite influential and well known in the ANC. He operated on SCOPA, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts in Parliament. Very good economist, and a book I would definitely recommend to a lot of people. He's no longer with the ANC, and I felt it would be a very, very interesting and important read, particularly for me as I consider going into politics in the future, and choosing a political party to join. As a white South African male, I wanted to know what his story was with the ruling party, and it started getting me thinking on a lot of things. Because he was with the ANC from somewhere in the 80s. He was there right in the beginning, from the CODESA conferences, as well as when we had our first democratic elections and the setting up of the constitution, of parliament, all of those incredible things. So reading his story has been a privilege and been a good read. And one of the things in this book that gets me thinking is how the South African democracy has come along. The other thing is that earlier this evening, the SABC News ran a story about the state of democracy, South African democracy, that we've had this successful transition to democracy, but over the over the 16 years, it's as though we have this electorate where everyone gets a chance to vote and everyone's vote counts, and then the majority wins, the majority gets to rule. And that is pretty much how democracy works. It's the will of the people who vote for the people vote for the parties, and the party that wins ends up governing the country. The problem with South African democracy that I see at the moment, and this was also mentioned on the news article, which got me thinking and thought was very interesting, was that the opposition parties have not been as strong as they should be or could be. Now, as we understand, the Democratic Alliance, DA, is the official opposition party, and they are by and large performing a very strong watchdog role for the ANC government. We often hear in the news them criticizing decisions government makes. They do make alternative policy changes, policy suggestions, but the problem is that it's pretty much snuffed out by the ANC. They hardly ever consider much of what the DA suggests in terms of policies. One of the main problem with the democracy in South Africa is the absence of strong opposition. Now, I don't mean a single opposition party. What I mean is a strong opposition to the ruling party. I honestly believe that a democracy cannot operate when you have 15 parties that people can vote for. You have one party getting 60% of the votes, and everybody else and the other 14 parties share the other 40%. It's crazy. It's, in my mind, as we move forward in the democracy in this country, I honestly believe that the opposition parties need to start considering very strongly the idea of coalitions. They need to consider amalgamating. The DA and the ID, the Independent Democrats and the Democratic Alliance, earlier this year merged, and essentially became one party. And that's a good thing. But there are other parties that need to start start looking at this as well. The UDM earlier this month held their elective conference, and their leader, Bantu Holomisa, came out and said that there was no way they were going to look at joining other opposition parties and having a coalition. And I was quite saddened by that, because I think that's a big mistake. A good democracy needs a strong opposition to be a good watchdog for a ruling party. It is essential. And the reality is that in this country right now, the ANC doesn't have that. They are able to do pretty much what they want. Now, I think, honestly, the ANC has done something of a good job up until now, particularly in the early stages. We look at our constitution, and it's been said to be one of the very best around the world, and that was very much ANC driven. You look at the ANC's Freedom Charter; it's an incredible document. I would suggest you go and read it. The ANC has produced some amazing leaders, an institute that can produce leaders of the quality of Nelson Mandela and Albert Lutuli and Oliver Tambo, great men of great courage, who are able to lead the struggle and push through and win democracy for South Africa, is an incredible thing. So I have great respect for the ANC. But unfortunately, what we saw after the Mandela administration was this kind of sense of less accountability and more we're the leaders and we're going to do what we want to do. And Andrew Feinstein, in his book After the Party, mentions this. He talks about how he was on Scopa during the Mandela administration and stayed there after Mbeki came to power, and he spoke about how there was this change, this shift in the accountability. Scopa is there essentially to keep government on track, to keep government spending on track. And he mentions about a particular incident where he and some other people were called into the president's office, and the president pretty much said to them, "This is how we're going to do it," and the leadership has spoken. There was no sense of we're going to listen to what you got to say. So it's been this sort of erosion while we started with this great honeymoon phase of democracy and great accountability and all of those great things in Parliament. It's sort of been this erosion away from that. And I believe that for this country to flourish and for democracy to flourish in this country, we need to start looking at a strong opposition. We need to start looking, opposition parties, UDM, even COPE need to get their act together. COPE need to get their act together, because even though their leadership is in an absolute disarray and they're fighting over some of the most ridiculous things, the truth of the matter is that the people are still going to vote for them. The electorate is still going to vote, which brings up another question. Do the people really know what's good for them? Is democracy really the right thing? Because do people honestly know what is good for them and what is not? Different question, different video. But getting back to what I was saying, COPE need to get their act together, because people are going to vote for them in next year's municipal elections. And they're going to need to be able to deliver on the goods. And I honestly believe that a coalition democracy, a coalition opposition, DA, ID, COPE and UDM would be a strong opposition, and can form and can become a strong opposition. So that's my thoughts for today. I'm going to be making a decision very soon on which political party I'm going to join, and narrowed it down to DA or ANC. And in the new year, in the first week in the new year, I'll make a video and probably be on that video announcing what I'm going to be doing. But thank you for watching. Your comments are always greatly appreciated. And until next time, Happy New Year.